and gentlemen, it's 9 a.m. I'll call the meeting to order. We not only have a quorum, we have 100% attendance. Welcome back to 2023. Would you please stand for the invocation delivered by Annette Bennett, city resident, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, thank you for establishing our government authorities to promote peace, order, and justice. I pray for our mayor, for our city officials, and in particular for this assembled council. I'm asking that you would graciously grant them the following: wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of today, strength and courage to be bound by the Constitution, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony, even when there is honest disagreement, personal peace in their lives, and joy in their task. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Fredericksburg. It is in your most blessed name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Item number 4 is ceremonial matters, proclamations, and employee recognitions. Mr. Bailey.
Mayor, I don't have any employee recognitions, but I wanted to use this as an opportunity to introduce our interim city attorney, Mick McCamey, and ask Mick to maybe say a few words. Mick, put you on the spot.
Well, wait a minute, Clinton. You said a few words. I'm a lawyer, remember?
Very few words.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I'm very happy to be available to serve as your interim city attorney and hope to help you out every way we can. Most of you have represented the city in litigation for now 30 years, I guess. Different parts of the city work. I have served as interim before, briefly, when Pat McGowan was city attorney and she had a conflict of interest or something. So I've sat here before, but this is really a great privilege to be asked to serve in this way for you guys. I'm a partner in the law firm of Taylor Olson, Adkins, Swalla, and Elam, and I have 25 municipal lawyers that assist all of us. So hope to provide all that service and all those resources for Fredericksburg for the next few months. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Mick. Welcome. Item number 6 is consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, December 20th.
I move that we approve the city council minutes from the December 20th, 2022 regular meeting.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7, other action items and updates. I'm going to move item B prior to item A. Consider, discuss, and take action regarding a presentation on the agenda management processes. Does this go right to Shelley?
Yes, sir, it does.
So we rolled out the new agenda management system, and you're looking at a little different view than you will probably normally look at. Right now, your view has bookmarks on the left-hand side to all your attachments. In the future, you will have a different view to where the attachments will show up on your portal. So I have provided you with some basic instructions on what your portal will look at and how you get into them, how you can make notes, and during the meeting, bring up those notes. You will, you should have each received an email from Civic Plus. If you didn't, please let me know. And what that will do is provide you with a way for you to get in. You will go into the system. You each have your own login and password into the system. and you will see the status as it's going on. It will also give you the opportunity to vote. And when you vote, the vote will appear on the screen. You can make the motion, you can make the second, and you will vote. There'll probably need to be some one-on-one training for this. So as soon as you get your login and password, if you'll, let me know, and we can sit down and go through it with you, so you'll have a better understanding. What this also means is that after today's meeting, it'll be posted on the website. And so instead of viewing the entire meeting, you'll be able to jump right to that agenda item. So that is a convenience as well. Other than that, it should be very, very simple from now on. We're pretty much electronic. Unless you need a packet, just let me know. And then for those in the public who tried to pull it up on the website, if you went to the main page that said agendas and minutes, you can pull it up. If you went to the city secretary page to pull up the agenda and minutes, for some reason that link didn't also work. So we'll get that fixed for you.
Are we going away from voice vote, or is that just an option to vote?
It's an option. If
Okay.
you voice vote and you don't vote, I will be able to, myself or Lee, will be able to put your vote in.
Okay, thank you.
So it's your choice. It's your choice as a council.
Thank you, Shelley. I'm just curious, how does it work as far as going back to view the meeting? Will we still have YouTube? Will there be tags on YouTube? Or we could go to a specific agenda item, or is it all going to be held within Civic Clerk?
I think we're doing both for right now. So you can still find us on YouTube, and then you'll find us through this live, through Civic Plus Live.
Again, Mayor, Council, this is a work in progress. We were shooting for the first meeting in January to make the transition to full digital through Civic Clerk. I was talking to Mick this morning. One of the main reasons we're doing this is to try to get information out to the council, to the city attorney, with enough time to take a look at that and review that information. Can't tell you how many times we've handed something to the city attorney's office days before or the day the agenda packet is being put together. This puts it in the city attorney's hands weeks before for review and approval and so forth. So we're trying to get well out ahead of all of the agendas. You've taken a look at the agenda spreadsheet. You can see all of the dates, all of the meeting dates, whether it's council or P&Z or otherwise. There are some items we already have plugged in to that spreadsheet in terms of future agenda items, that list of items as we have these special meetings for discussion. Those will be accessible by the council as I'm meeting with you. As those priorities rise up, we can add those to the agenda and so forth. So this is a work in progress. This is our first attempt at the full digital go live, no printed packets for this particular meeting. So if you have any comments, get those back to Shelley and I. If there's part of the functionality that's not working, a change you'd like to see made, just get that back to us. We understand there are going to be some bumps in the implementation. So thank you for your cooperation with and willingness to go with the digital media versus print, and we think this is going to be a good thing in the end.
I'm sure once we are up and running, it'll be very beneficial, but there is a learning curve, right? You'll help us with that. Some of us more than others, probably. Any other comments, questions, council? All right. I apologize that I skipped number 5, council comments, and I'm going to insert that now because I have one. Anybody else have one? Council comment?
I'd just like to wish everybody a Happy New Year.
Same here, but I want to say a huge thank you to city staff, Jennifer Krupa, and all the people who participated in making last Saturday such a terrific event. The marketplace was just filled with families and children, and lots of good things going on. And I especially enjoyed the sign that said, City of Fredericksburg, all attractions or whatever, free, no tickets required. That was so fun to see because it was something that engaged families and the ball drop and the whole thing. I know what it takes to put on something like that, and I bet you there were some glitches behind the scenes. But it looks very smooth and fun to me, and thanks to the city for doing that. And just one of the great things about being in Fredericksburg is what happens for Christmas and New Year. So the parade, the singing tree, the church walk, all of those things that the town still invests in to make it a good holiday for everybody. And so for the part of the city's involvement, I want to say a huge thank you. And I've already conveyed that to Jennifer, but I want to say it publicly. And then I want to say, council, thank you for your work over the past year. It's in my first 8 months as mayor, and of 3 of the council members their first time. And I look forward to a new year for being certainly productive, and that we make some great headway in the big issues in front of us. And wish you all the best of the new year as well. All right, I'll go on to 7A, to consider the approval of a conditional use permit requested by Bethany McCullough for property located at 511 West San Antonio. This says the public hearing was held on December 20. Do we need to do that again? Okay. Then Anna, are you the present? Do you want to do the presentation, or do we go to the applicant first?
She's got a presentation ready, so we can do that, and then I can follow up with staff's recommendations and answer any questions.
Welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, Mayor. Good morning. Good morning, council members. Good to meet you. I'm here today to speak to you about my CUP application for the property that I co-own at 511 West San Antonio. My name is Bethany McCullough Ross, and I am here to ask that you consider my CUP application that's asking to increase my occupancy from 10 to 15 guests at that property. A little bit about myself, a little bit of background. I, along with my sister and our spouses, are from Central Texas, grew up going to Fredericksburg, love Fredericksburg, and made it a goal the past, several years to be able to buy property here and enjoy it just like you guys do. And about a year ago, we found the opportunity to do that at 511 West San Antonio. And over the past year, I, along with my sister and our spouses and our 2-year-old daughter, have been working every weekend, coming out here and renovating it personally. We updated it to restore its historic beauty, to not only for us to enjoy, but also for the neighborhood to appreciate. We made it to where it can now sleep up to 14, which would accommodate our entire family, extended family, because much of our extended family lives in Central Texas, and we use it as a meeting point. Also, in order to financially support it, we STR the property, or short-term rent it out while we're not using it. Also, to financially support the property, we had to bring in a couple friends who were equally as passionate about Fredericksburg. One of those being Jane Coe, who is pretty well known in Austin, but she wrote this book about Fredericksburg and promotes it throughout Central Texas, and promotes your city and your businesses, and uses some of those proceeds and donates them to the Texas Food and Wine Foundation. With that being said, I wanted to make the point that we're here not just to own an STR, but to also be part of the community and to be involved and give back. So with that being said, I guess with the application, there was a sticking point that staff had that I wanted to speak to you about. So if I could get, yeah, there we go. So first off, just wanted to give a map of the proximity and where our property is located. We're on a block south of West Main Street. We can go to the next slide. This gives kind of an overall view of what is going on the block and on the street as far as zoning and what the uses are there. As you can see, it's noting who is non-STR and who is STR and what their occupancy is. So if you go to the next slide, you can see I have kind of summarized that into a sheet that shows the numbers there as far as 50% are STR, the other 50% is residential with one commercial. And of those residential units that are there, only 3 of them live there full time, and all the other ones are either open lots or they're weekend homes where people only live there part time or very part time. The next spreadsheet breaks down the density of each unit that's on that street that was in the yellow. And of those STRs, I've summarized the density, each property, the units within that property, and then the average occupancy for all of those units. And that comes out to 5.6 for the entire street. And if y'all were able to grant our occupancy for what we're asking, that would make us at 5 occupants per unit, which is actually less than what is on the street. Sorry, if you could go back up. I've put blue stars next to the properties that were also kind of sticking points for staff because they are, I guess, our property would be the second highest occupancy on the street. But the property across from us, 514 West San Antonio, actually has 3 units under construction right now. So they only have an occupancy of 8, but with those 3 units being added, I'm sure that it will increase the occupancy and will, still be in there in the same, average occupancy so that we're not at crazy numbers. We can go to the next slide. So this map shows the buffer zone as to who is notified about my application, but also I've taken that and I went and personally spoke with each one of our neighbors on this block and tried to get in contact with them and spoke with them about how they felt about us increasing our occupancy. The green shows that these neighbors were either in support or were not opposed to us adding these occupants. These were written in emails or letters that were given to staff. I don't know if those were given to you,
Yes.
but okay. And then naturally the ones in red are the ones that were opposed. I would like to note that the 515 and 516 are both part-time occupants, and 515 would not speak to us about the issue, so I'm not quite sure what their issue was with us increasing the occupancy. But otherwise, I just wanted to give you a visual of the block and everyone who is in support of us increasing our occupancy. And again, a chart that just breaks it down by the numbers. There's 22 properties in that buffer. Of those 22 properties, I spoke with 16 of them. 11 of them were in support. 4 of them were opposed. I believe there's one more letter of opposition that was submitted that I didn't speak with, and then 1 was undecided. So it seems like an overwhelming amount of people on our block are in support of us doing this. So with that, I just want to reiterate that everything that we have and everything that we have submitted is according to code, and the code that we are grandfathered under for 2018 code. And from the information that was given to me, I believe that there's a precedent that was set, a precedent that was set as far as the amount of occupants per unit, and we're just in line with that. I don't think we need to see that one. That was from the past presentation. But again, I hope that you will consider everything is in code and ask that your decision based on the ordinance 5.460 be based on facts and data. And thank you for listening to me and rambling on. And if you have any questions, I am here.
We may have
Thank
some
you.
questions for you after we hear
Okay.
from staff. Ms. Hudson?
Thank you, Bethany. So as you remember, this went to planning and zoning and did receive a denial recommendation. And so this would require a supermajority for you to approve it. She did a good job summarizing the issues around it. This is an R2 in the historic district, and the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit of the zoning ordinance to expand the STR nonconforming units. As she's mentioned, there are 3 units, and she's looking to increase the occupancy by 50% to go from 10 to 15. One issue that was brought up at P&Z was parking, and she did provide a new site plan showing how many parking spots she has. And then that the tract is bordered by residences to the west and east, and 1 STR unit to the south that has an occupancy of 2. Across West San Antonio to the north is a mix of residential and STR properties. The existing layout provides 4 parking spaces. 1 parking space per unit was required for the 2018 ordinance. However, 6.110 of the 2022 ordinance requires an increase in occupancy to provide 1 parking space per 2 occupants, resulting in the need for, if they're asking for 15, that would actually be 7 parking spots, which is more than they are currently providing. The applicant provided an updated site plan showing 6 off-site parking spaces as required per 5.60. The property is located in a neighborhood that possesses an even mix of residences and STRs, and the average occupancy per unit is 5. All but 1 of the 16 properties in the neighborhood operate with fewer than 10 occupants. The property in question is the only STR in the block that is operating 3 STR units, which is currently a combined occupancy of 10. And further increase to that occupancy could potentially create unfavorable effects or impacts on the permitted uses in the neighborhood. Planning and zoning met on December 7th and unanimously recommended denial. We've received 5 written comment cards in opposition to the request. As presented, the proposed occupancy is greater than the other STR properties on the block. The block still has 8 non-STR properties. As presented, the proposed increased occupancy does not meet the requirements necessary to obtain a CUP, given the surrounding uses and low occupancy average of 5 per unit. An increase in occupancy that would give a result of 15 guests on site is not compatible with the neighborhood, and staff recommends denial of the CUP request relating to the increase in occupancy.
Council?
Anna, I have a question about the parking. You say that it's resolved, or it's resolved. So it's resolved under the 2018 ordinance, but not resolved under the permanent ordinance. Tell me what.
Correct. The 2018 ordinance only required 1 parking spot per unit, so 3 units only would have required 3.
Okay. Thank you.
And now it's per occupancy.
When you were updating on the updated site plan, you said there were 6 off-site or 6 on-site parking spots.
Eric, can you pull up the site plan? On site.
On site. Okay.
I'm sorry.
It does require tandem parking.
I think on site. Is that correct?
I'm sorry.
6 on site?
It looks like the most recent she's providing is 7, but one is in the right of way.
Do you want to ask? I bet Bethany can answer that question. That parking on site and off site. Can you explain?
Yes. So, yes, technically, so there are 6 spots, and Anna did note that one of them is in the right of way when you tandem park. So it's still in the driveway, but there's that setback that they would be parked in.
Thank you.
Are they allowed 2 parking spaces on the street?
If there's room that doesn't block the driveways. I will note on this parking, this site plan wasn't actually like approved by, it's not gone through the formal site plan review process. It's just a rough sketch. So it looks like the configuration up there where you see the orange block to the left of Stonehouse.
Yes.
That southernmost parking spot would not work.
And I'm trying to wrap my head around what the 18 ordinance is and the 22 ordinance. So they were initially permitted under the 2018 ordinance, correct? And under that, it's 1 person per 200 square feet. And for this situation, it would be 3 parking spaces under the 2018. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, but then now that we're in 2023, we're under the 2022 ordinance. What is the new standard for occupancy and parking?
So the parking is based on occupancy and it requires 1 parking space per 2 occupants. And the occupancy now is done by bedroom with a max of 12. 2 per bedroom with a max of 12. 2 per bedroom plus 2 with a max of 12.
So what would it be for this? Is it per unit? 2 per bedroom, max 12? So not that this would happen, but it could be 36 if you had 3 units. So it's not based on square footage at all. It's based on bedroom.
Correct. The new is based on bedroom.
And when you go through the cut process under the new ordinance, you're tied to the new ordinance requirements, right?
Yes.
Ms. Ross, may I ask you a question, please? A couple of questions.
Yep.
So these emails that you requested that it sent, and basically a statement that we have no objection or we support. I don't want to take a quick count. Looks like there's half a dozen or something like that.
So
Are these people who live here?
So they're just all the residents or the homeowner, property owners in that area in the buffer zone. So many of them do not live here.
Okay.
And that's the point I was trying to stress, that they don't live here, but I was able to get in contact with a lot of them. And that's what they
I won't hold
provided.
you to this.
Okay.
In being truthful or not. I'm not anticipating you would be.
Yeah.
I'm just saying for the record, I'm asking you to guess about these people. Are they owners of rental property?
Some of them are, yes.
Are the STR owners?
Some of them are STR owners, and some of them, and I can point out exactly which ones are
Okay,
and aren't. Yeah.
I was just trying to, because as I understand it, the protests are people who live in their homes.
Right.
And who would pay a price for whatever decision is made.
Yes.
Whereas perhaps some of the others are not.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do want to clarify that if you bring the map back up, I can show you which ones live there full time. And so I'll point these out. I'll just say the numbers so it's better. So 506 lives there full time, 505 and 507, and they were all in support.
And these are residents of Fredericksburg that live there.
Correct.
Okay.
518 also lives there full time. And I'd like to note that he mentioned that he can hear Hondos from his house at night. And he's like, I'm sure the noise level from your guests won't outdo Hondo's. So he did not have an issue. And also to point out, well, I'm not going to name names, but a couple of the homeowners actually preferred to live close to STRs because they do keep their properties up nicely, and they have not had any issues with guests to date.
If someone were to rent the whole property for 15 people as one group, who manages that? Who manages their behavior?
That would be, I guess, our property management company. That's who gets called first.
The local.
But residents will most likely call the police. So they would come and address that.
The P&Z denied this application.
Mm-hmm.
What's your understanding as to why?
Well, I guess because there was a misunderstanding on the parking situation, but I think I wasn't able to fully articulate my case as far as compatibility and density. And so I forget what the ordinance is, the last one that I named. They were just concerned about compatibility, and that was my understanding as to why.
And I have another cup question and how it relates to the 18 versus 22, because it was my first planning and zoning commission meeting. We evaluated 514 West San Antonio that is currently 2 units and was looking to expand +3 for a total of 5. And I asked the question, can we account for density of the area, looking at other STRs, and was told that we have to evaluate each application just that property and not looking at the surrounding area. I think that changed a bit with the new ordinance where now we can evaluate density. So, it is what it is now, but we've got something on the books for 3 more units being built right across the street, which I think needs to be really taken into consideration because that's going to change the number of people that are visiting in that area more than what it is right now.
Bethany, I have a great deal of respect for the people who serve on P&Z and for our city staff, and I don't quite understand what you're saying they missed that's caused you to come to us and say that they were wrong. Can you clarify that for me?
I just think I wasn't able to articulate compatibility and get a full picture of, at that point, I had only spoken to a few neighbors. And between then and now, I've been able to speak to, a good majority of the people on the block and to get a little more research to see that more units are being added, and that we're in line with the rest of the properties on the street.
Thank you.
Other questions, council?
Anna, on the site plan that you provided here on page 27, it's showing 7 spots, but one's in the right of way and one closest to cottage, you said would not work. And 7 is the magic number for parking. And they don't show any on the street, which it looks like they could park 2 cars. So best I can tell is that they would comply with the ordinance if 7 spots is what's needed. Unless I'm seeing something totally wrong.
Yes, assuming all the spots are drawn accurately and that there are room for 2 on the street, then yes, that would meet the bare minimum.
And that's what's required by code, and P&Z denied this because of the parking.
I don't think it was just parking. I think it was compatibility with the neighborhood, because when you look at the CUP information, sorry, on page, let me do that page, where you've got your list of things to consider. Page 16 of your packet, the 5.460 review and evaluation criteria. Going back to Emily's determination, proposed use is in accordance with the objectives of the zoning regulations, the purposes of the zone in which this is to be located. Again, residential, determination that any conditions applicable to the approval are the minimum necessary to minimize potentially unfavorable impacts on nearby uses and to ensure compatibility of the proposed use with existing or permitted uses in the same district.
Okay, if you, across the street, house, address 508, according to the map on page 26, has 2 STR units, occupancy of 8 and 10, so that's 18. And 514, which is the PAX STR that's under construction, what will their total occupancy be with the additions?
Tammy, do you know?
14. Okay, thank you.
And those all back up to CBD zoning, to Main Street, on the north side of San Antonio Street.
Okay. And this unit backs up to, is it R2 or R1?
We back up to an R2.
R1. Well, this one immediately backs up to R2, but you can see all the lots behind it are green. R1.
Okay, so 205 is a deep lot. Okay. So let's see. And so she backs up to an STR that has only 2 occupants. Okay. I guess what concerns me is you've got non-STRs, whether they live there or not, on both sides of you, and low density STR behind you. So, and I understand across the street, but
And just to clarify, the property to the east of us does not, they live there in Fredericksburg full time, but that's their second house to help accommodate other guests that come and visit. So
Okay.
nobody lives there full time. And then the property to the west of us, that's also a family home. And one of the sisters lives in Dallas and one lives outside of town. And when their family comes and visits, they, on the weekends, every once in a while, they'll still stay there.
okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments, council?
And as soon as she returns, I'll ask.
Sorry.
As soon as Anna returns, I'll have my last question. So, go ahead.
Sorry. You realize this is still a new process for staff too, the CUP and STRs. And my question to legal counsel was if they have to meet all of the requirements of the 2022 ordinance by expanding the use, and if you should be considering all of the considerations, not just parking, such as, for example, it's R2. And so if this were new, if it were going to meet the 2022 requirements, it would need a square foot, 15,000 square feet. And they are short of that. They currently have 0.29 acres, and they would require about 0.34. So they're just under the, again, density is one thing that we're considering. So if this were going to be a new one and meet all the requirements, it wouldn't be eligible for 3 units given the size of the lot. What was the other one? Oh, and that couldn't even apply for a facility. 3 units makes it a facility. And if they were applying today, they may not even be, we would have to run that evaluation, but that is something they would have to request to become a facility.
Now, can we take that into effect, even though, take that into account, even though that was not part of the whole process up until just this moment?
I'd also like to note that we're only applying for 2 of the units. The 3rd unit is already permitted the way we'd like, and the CUP is only for the stone house and the ranch house.
For me, this isn't a no never, but a no for right now until like this is still R2. We don't have a strategic look at what STRs, I'd say zone, but like areas where we want to encourage STRs and areas where we want to encourage long-term permanent residents. So this isn't a no never, but I'm not comfortable with approving an increase.
Other comments?
For me, it's a no because PNC voted unanimously against him. We give them this authority, so I wouldn't want to go against them. I haven't heard any reason that would make me say that they were wrong.
And of the page 16 in our packet, section 5.460, review and evaluation criteria. Is this what y'all have in front of you when you deal with this? Okay, thank you. I asked Hannah, but I see 2 members of the PNC out there. I don't see anything compelling to approve this because of the review and evaluation criteria. I see some things, regardless of what was just told us, or in addition to what was just told us about the density requirements in R2. This, in my mind, seems to go against conflicting agendas or objectives that I certainly have to lead the city toward a different status quo in these neighborhoods. I'll be voting no. Anybody else? All right, I'm ready for a motion.
I move to deny application Z2228 for 511 West San Antonio Street.
Second.
Motion second to deny this approval is presented and discussed. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Let's see. All right. Are we at city manager's report?
I believe so.
Item 8A.
Short agenda. Mayor, Council, I just wanted to give a quick update, and I'll turn to a couple of others to add to this update on short-term rental permitting and code enforcement. We are working through a process with Granicus trying to manage the data that they're helping us manage to an eventual likely end of that relationship with that group, while at the same time working along this parallel path, developing another system to manage short-term rental permitting, renewals, and so forth. Might let Garrett provide just a little bit more information, detailed information on both of those efforts. On the code enforcement side, we've had both of our code enforcement officers out sick for the last week and a half or so. As we've reported in the past, most of the violations, the minor violations that we're seeing through code enforcement with respect to STRs, mainly have to do with trash. There are some parking issues, but those minor violations, about 50-50. Still yet STRs, other violations. On the PD side, things have been very quiet. I'll ask Brian to provide you with some details specific to the last week or so. we have had a lot of fireworks going off in town. There was a report about a week ago of fireworks at an STR when they showed up. They didn't discover anything. But Brian, can you give just an update on the information that you provided me this morning? Again, pretty quiet in terms of things going on outside generally. I think that's typical with this time of the year. People generally aren't outside, although it was 80 degrees yesterday. It's getting pretty nice again. We really don't expect that until the spring and summertime. But Brian, could you provide just a little bit more detail?
Sure. Good morning, Mayor and Council. Over the past week, the police department received 7 noise ordinance violation calls. The majority of those were fireworks related. Residences, hotels, and STR reported 2 firework related incidences. So they weren't at the STR this week. The STR was reporting the fireworks being shot off. We did have one noise complaint about Hondos. They were over the limit, and we made contact with them, and they turned the music down. And that complaint came from 300 West Main Street. We had, like I mentioned, fireworks at the hotel, a couple fireworks reported in the neighborhoods around the elementary school up in on North Adams. And we had an STR receive a complaint. The officers did find a couple individuals talking in a hot tub. They were issued a warning. The officers attempted to make contact with the 30-minute contact. There was no contact made and no response. So the police department will be filing against that owner in municipal court.
I believe that was New Year's Eve, correct?
Yes, New Year's Eve, 1:21 a.m.
Chief, is it your understanding that, well, what is your understanding about a complaint on an STR? Personnel tries to make contact with registered local contact. What's your perception of how often that's successful?
Since we've been keeping track diligently over the last couple of months, the majority of the times we're unable to contact that 30-minute contact. I think I read one report where we were able to, and they addressed the situation. I'd like to mention that the officers have been asking a lot more questions when they show up to the short-term rentals, or they discover it's a short-term rental. They talk to the tenants. They've been asking them, "Are you aware of the rules?" And I've seen in a lot of reports, "Yeah, we're aware of the rules. We were supplied the rules. We see the rules were posted, or we were told about the rules." So it's just interesting that the individuals staying at the STR were aware of the rules, but are still not complying with the rules. So we're trying to address that as well.
On that subject, one of the residents who came to speak at City Council a few months ago with these kind of complaints talked to me on New Year's Day. They said they had a problem on Friday night. They called. Police were there in 11 minutes. They tried the owner first and didn't get a response. Called the police department. They were there in 11 minutes. They had a quiet talk with the residents, and they were there again. The same people were there Saturday night, and it was very quiet. So they were very complimentary of how the police handled it, how quickly and how quietly it's all taken care of. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
That seems to be working pretty well. The major versus minor violations code versus PD handling those issues. Garrett, could you provide just a little bit more detail on the recent visit from the Granicus representative and parallel path we're working on with the task force?
Sure. So Granicus did send a representative down last week on Tuesday and Wednesday. She was here working directly with city staff on the issues that were identified in our letter that was sent to them. Basically, we left that meeting with a number of action items, both on the Granicus side and the city staff side. But ultimately, I think what we're finding is based on the current limitations of the software package, it doesn't appear to be the best long-term fit for the city. So In the interim, the system still does capture a lot of information that staff needs to process these applications and renewals that we're seeing. So we want to continue that relationship at this time. In the meantime, we're actively working through these, what we're referring to as parallel paths. We have a meeting with a company called My Permit Now this morning to talk about a potential solution they may have. And then at the same time, we're also looking at more of an in-house solution. And then also updating the RFP that was issued last year when ultimately Granicus was signed on, to update that RFP and make sure it provides very specific details on what the city is looking for if we choose to go that route. So again, a lot of things being worked on. I'll try to provide y'all updates periodically. And again, I'll follow up today with the meeting or with an update on how the meeting with My Permit Now goes. But feel free to call me if you have any specific questions. I can go into a lot more detail.
So basically what Garrett's saying is we can't live with them, can't live without them at this point.
Pretty
As much as we would want to just sever that, we need some of it to manage what we have. So again, we're working to that end. I also want to note that it was relayed to me that Granicus has admitted to being part of the problem here. Communication breakdown, and then also not delivering what was specified in the RFP. So they understand that. They understand that they're not delivering what was expected back in February of last year.
Is this the first time we've had a Granicus representative meet one-on-one with the city staff?
Yes, ma'am. This is the first time. And with respect to that, I'll also note that in our conversations, and I think Randy will probably shake his head to this, with the Granicus executives, it appears that they're all working remotely. So it's very difficult to get those individuals on site like we were able to do last week. Personally, that's something that, if we're doing this, if we go through this process again, I think that's going to be necessary right up front. We have that kickoff meeting, we lay the groundwork, and we maintain that face-to-face contact with those individuals so that they understand the people, the processes, and so forth. I think that's critical when you're kicking off a process like this. It will definitely be something we do next time.
Are there not others out there that can compete with this? It sounds like we're dragging our feet.
No, there are a few, and I think what the issue is, Tony, we thought in the beginning that we could find this packaged software product that would completely fit our needs. Instead of asking someone to develop something specific to our needs. It's like, honestly, like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. What we're trying to accomplish is not what Granicus does. It's not the way they do things. Their product is software as a service. It is not customizable. Really, what we should have done from the beginning is said, okay, here's our ordinance. Here are the processes that we have in place. This is what we're trying to achieve. Through Z. Can you develop something to help us achieve this? That would have been the best way to do that, and that's really what we're doing right now on this parallel path that we keep talking about, based on the processes that we have, based on the ordinance, based on staff input on these items. We're in the process of building something to meet our needs instead of just looking for, a product out there that may or may not. This is the issue that a lot of people are running into. There are some competitors. GovOS is another good example. Port A number of different cities are using parts of GovOS, some to some success, but not, just a complete success. So I think we were going down the wrong path, starting from the very beginning. We've changed course thanks to the mayor's task force and his direction, the folks that are involved. And I'm hopeful that we can get through this process with Granicus and get on a path that will lead us to successful management of these things. We're not spending so much staff time dealing with this in the future.
Also, I learned from task force members who help staff through engaging with Granicus people that, and Tom mentioned this at a meeting we had back in October, that the council did not approve, the previous council did not approve Granicus to provide us a beta version. And that's what they did. They thought they were getting something else, and Granicus supplied something else. And I've been educated by people who work in that world, like Randy Briley, that beta means it's a trial version, untested, and they're still working on it and using customer feedback as ways to improve and so forth. And we needed the finished product, and even if it was inadequate, we needed what we thought they were presenting. So that's another factor. It's just been a very all-around unpleasant experience. And I'm hoping that we're getting toward the end of this. Thank you, Clinton, and thank you all for your work that y'all done.
Randy's.
Yeah, Randy. Did you ask me a question? Because I didn't hear you. I was asking if it's appropriate to involve Randy. Absolutely, please do. Randy's on the task force, and we're going to meet every Wednesday this month as our final 30 days approved by the council.
Well, thanks for letting me break protocol. Randy Briley, I live here in town. Also part of the mayor's task force, so thank you for that opportunity. I come from the software world in my prior career, so I kind of speak the language a little bit, enough to be dangerous. As the mayor stated, they launched initial offering portal, which was really non-production ready software. And you have a new attorney here sitting here, so you understand that if you launch beta into a production environment, that creates a huge liability for the software vendor. They are liable to us for the performance and or damages that may occur as a result of poor performance. And that's really the result. And I got the executive vice president of Granicus to basically admit that. So midstream, they understood that the portal was not working properly. They acquired a second company and launched a net new product called the Enhanced Portal, which isn't, well, I'll leave my sarcasm alone for the moment. Doesn't provide the functionality that's necessary to do basic things around permitting. Permit renewal has been shut off until, I think we're reviewing it at the moment. Hot tax remittal for some property owners is not possible. It has to be remitted via check, by paper. So the core functionality, what's really crucial right now for Shelby, is that portal front end allows property owners to submit renewals and or net new permits. So based upon my exposure so far, that's the only functionality that's happening. In the background, what's happening is with city staff is they are doing an exceptional amount of work in a tremendous manner to cobble together Excel spreadsheets to manage properties, hot taxes, remittance, all the stuff that, quite frankly, Granicus should probably do 80% of that. The city is doing 80 to 85% of that manually, and the rest of it is coming through Granicus. So we're paying full boat for functionality that doesn't exist. So that's where we talk about three paths forward is, can we band-aid it and make it work well enough? And that's a question for city staff, because I see the amount of work that falls on their shoulders. Do we go out with an RFP because this is the hospitality market is emerging? What's happened in 12 months that didn't exist 12 months ago? Or the third, do we do something in-house, homegrown, using local resources? So those all need to be explored. But I would strongly encourage that if we do enter into a contract with a third-party vendor again, the system level or service level agreements are met, actually outlined, that there are penalties for performance or lack of performance, and there are measured milestones for deliverables, because none of that was in the city contract that I saw. So I think there's some fundamental flaws that took place on the front end, and then delivery of the product and subsequent support. It was nice to have somebody on site last week quite frankly, that person should have been here April 2nd, 2022. That's my, so, thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor, since we have three of the task force members here, I just wanted to say thanks to them. I can remember when we started this process years ago, I guess now, we were in a little bit more of an adversarial position, and it's nice to have everybody on the same side, playing on the same team. I think Randy and I were probably always good, but just having having all of that expertise and the willingness to come together to solve this issue, that says a lot about all sides of this group. So thank y'all.
Agreed. All right. Future agenda items.
Okay, future agenda items, and you should be able to pull that up in front of you here. A little bit longer meeting, January 17th. Before I get started on these items, Anna, do you want to talk? Anna, do you want to talk about joint meeting to start with?
Yes, so on the 17th, we will be hosting a joint meeting with P&Z to go over the comp plan. Half associates will be here. So we will do more of a roundtable, not sit at the dais, so that P&Z and City Council can kind of set their goals for what they want to come out of the comprehensive plan. We've realizing you guys are going to have a meeting before that, so then hopefully have time for you to break and get some refreshments before we start that second meeting for you. And then later that day, we will also be meeting with our advisory committee. And then our first open house will be on the 18th, Wednesday the 18th at the Old Sanctuary at Pioneer Museum. And that'll be an open house come and go from 4 to 7.
What is the time and location of the joint meeting?
The joint meeting's here at noon.
At noon.
Yes.
Let's ask a specific question about that item, about meeting with P&Z. I've heard from various members of P&Z, and both past and present, that there would be a good beneficial conversation to have. I'm asking if this is included in this meeting, or is it strictly about comp plan? A tightening up of what CUP procedures, how the CUP procedure criteria and evaluation is done. The sentiment that I've gotten is that perhaps there needs to be better clarity. Is that from y'all? Because I heard from someone on P&Z that when it comes before them, they feel like they may not have as much information as far as evaluation criteria, guideline criteria, to just not say, yeah, I guess, or that there's not enough room for them to decide each case, negative, positive, that is just sort of cut and dried. That's the sense that I got. Do you have anything to add to that? How do you feel? Do you feel like you have everything you need? That's the question.
I don't know if you ever have everything you need. I think that, we want to wait.
Can I put you on the spot and get you on the record? And Tim, feel free to, because I did ask a direct question.
Tom Musselman. I'm on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I don't know that you ever have everything that you need. I think the question that we have as a community is, are we looking for a checklist? Okay, check the box, check the box, check the box. So is it or is it something more holistic than that? Does a checklist is that satisfactory in every case that comes before before the city, or is there another way to do it? And I don't know. I know that in the decisions that I've voted on planning and zoning with in the CUP process, and one thing I think we need to be aware of is that all the CUPs we're doing, we're talking R2, but we're talking R2. All these things are R2 historic district. They're not R2 on Friendship Lane. These are R2 historic district, and I think this is a different animal. The R2 in residential historic is different than R2 everywhere else in town. So I think it's on. I think it's ongoing. You know, you try to develop standards, and I think the Planning and Zoning Commission is very uh, uh, very agreeable that we have standards and we try to apply those standards equally to every issue that comes up before us.
Then let me narrow down the question.
Okay.
Yeah, you caught me on the absolute language of you have everything you need. And I take your point that can you ever have everything you need? I'm asking on the basis of a month-to-month agenda where you have cup processes, particularly about R2, R1s, and particularly about STRs, because that's my interest in the question. Do you feel like you have what you need to make a decision on a case-by-case basis that is fairly applied, but also meets other objectives the city has toward housing, et cetera? Do you feel like you have what you need to make the best decision each time? Because what I heard was perhaps there are some gaps.
Well, I don't know. I think, you know, we make decisions based upon the information that we have, and the I guess the cut processes. I know that we go through all those, and that's what we're using. Gerald, I don't know what else could be added, and so maybe that's a discussion that, you know, we as you as ordinance making and we as information giving, you know, come up with, would it help to have this? Would it help to have that?
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. So
Tim?
Thank you. What planning and zoning, from my view, needs is we need rules that we can apply evenly. I don't believe that city staff ever brings us anything that is not very well documented, very well researched, and I think that their recommendations carry an awful lot of weight with us. We will, in my opinion, we will follow the rules that we have. And until you guys change the rules that we go by, that's what we're going to do. And we can touchy-feely all we want, but we have got to stay with the rules that are in the books. And that's what we intend to do. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Thank you both, sirs.
So Mayor, the question was, should we add that to the agenda on the 17th?
I wouldn't mind if we could add that to the discussion, but I don't want to clog up things that keep us here.
Can I make a slightly different recommendation?
Sorry?
Can I make a slightly different recommendation?
Absolutely.
Since you have the STR task force, maybe let them kind of take that on with staff. I would also like to confer with our new legal staff who has a lot more experience with a lot of different municipalities and how they handle this. So he might have some best practices that he could share. So I'd like to start there and maybe run it through the STR task force.
I accept that recommendation. Thank you.
If I could add a little bit more to that, we might just have a standalone item on a February agenda at the conclusion of the task force effort. We can get Mick up to speed on everything STR related, STR ordinance and so forth, and just save that as a workshop item. Task force included.
Okay.
So back to the regular.
Glenn, would it be worth having P&Z at that meeting in February?
You bet.
Hear everything at the same time.
Right, and you know, I don't know that there will be any ordinance amendments that are proposed at the conclusion of the task force effort, but you know, certainly I think it would be beneficial to have P&Z involved at that point if we're discussing modifying the ordinance at all. Great, thank you.
Mayor,
Thank you for letting me interrupt. Yes.
I'm going to speak to planning and zoning just a minute and say that we are willing to meet the city council anytime you
Thank you, sir.
have staff set it up. Just have mine.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Okay, back to the regular January 17th meeting. We have the minutes from today. We have Z2232 land use and zoning change. Anna, do you have an address location for that particular item?
East Nimitz,
East Nimitz. Okay, and what does that involve?
R1 to R2.
Okay. STR, or is it just a zone change from R1 to R2?
That one is just a zone change.
Okay, we have Z 2230, conditional use permit, STR unoccupied. Address on that one.
That one's on East Schubert.
East Schubert Street. Okay, we could start adding a little bit more detail in there. So, okay, item number 4, street closures. Number of different street closures. You're trying to get all those approved at one time here. City Hall open house and touch a truck. Wanderlust Half Marathon. Fredericksburg Volunteer Fire Department Fish Fry, Vintage Motor Car Club of America, Wildflower Run, and Crawfish Festival. Landfill cell construction and geosynthetics bid awards. Garrett, ready to go on those two? Okay.
Real quick, there will be a third item associated with that for construction administration.
Okay. North Lano Storm Sewer Project Design Contract Award.
Texas Water Development Board did formally approve the project, I believe on December 20th, so we may now proceed with that project.
Okay, and then finally, CBB lease. We did meet with Brady last week. I apologized. He accepted my apology for throwing him under the bus last time. I think we're at a pretty good point there. So we'll have that lease in front of the council for approval next time. That's all we have right now. Be happy to answer any questions.
I thought we had a request for release of easement from the hospital. Is that not an agenda item?
And in terms of timing for that particular item, I might turn to Chris and Garrett. Chris?
Last I heard from Daniel, he had some conversations with Kendra, and the ball was in her court to visit with the hospital. I'll revisit, but at this time, we're not ready to bring that back to council. We will as soon as they're ready, I'll say.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any timelines associated with the future agenda items list of 11 things? Are any of those urgent, or is it, what's the purpose of the list? Do we need to pull any of them up?
So again, as we start going through the process of developing agendas in the future, a lot of these may have some time sensitivity. Others may just be discussion type items. We can probably differentiate between the two. This list will grow. The 30 some odd items that we have been discussing fairly loosely about adding to an agenda at some point will be added to this list. Again, I would encourage all council members to take a look at this list. If any of these are time sensitive, we will note that when generally they will need to be considered. But just looking at the list here, we do have a board and commission vacancy. There will be a time sensitivity to that. West Live Oak zoning and land use change, potentially time critical there. Intersection traffic device modifications. Not sure exactly what intersection that is. Again, a little bit more detail on that.
We've got 3 of them.
Okay.
So Post Oak and Live Oak, Travis and Cherry, and Bowie and Creek Street are the 3 we're looking at. We're getting some updated traffic counts and looking at some of the crash data. So I would say that would come before you in the next couple of months.
Right. Soccer fields, again, this is going to be an item that will likely end up on a special meeting agenda for pretty high level discussion with the council moving forward. There are a few items that need to be resolved with that effort. Mass event rentals, something again we've talked about getting on a special meeting workshop discussion agenda with the council to talk about for special events on the square. Future plans for the landfill, I was going to mention during that item, as we're nearing the end of the useful life of our landfill, we need to start planning for the future of that facility, whether it's expansion or some type of transfer station. We will be engaging in a study to help us make those decisions this year. So a lot more discussion on that particular item. That one will probably be something we get in front of the council sooner than later. Performance agreement, Friendship Oaks, phase 1. I'm not familiar with that particular item.
At one point, they were really pushing for that to be able to record the plat and try to sell some lots. My understanding now, I think they pulled back, so this item could go away. I think they're trying to wrap up the public improvements by the end of February. But we'll try to get an update.
We have our purchasing policy, which the council, one, may not be familiar with. Two, would probably be good to bless that policy. If you have any comments, questions on that particular policy, we have made some amendments to it based on state law within the last 5 years. So again, just getting council familiar with that particular item. And then finally, an ordinance for collection of debits on city. I think that's civil administrative adjudication process and going through municipal court. So something else that we're talking about right now, and again, not quite ready. But we'll add to this list again. I just had a discussion with the mayor last week about having a special meeting where we sit down and talk about, do a refresh on council priorities for the new year. My evaluation will also be coming up during executive session next meeting. So as we're getting into the new year, setting goals for city staff, doing a refresh of those priorities, and a lot of those items will come from this future agenda item list. But we'll do a better job of making sure that we have any of these items noted that are time sensitive related to a development or some other P&Z approval, whatever the case may be, and then others that are just for discussion purposes.
Lynn, would you like to mention the potential conflict on February 7th?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. So we do have, and Justin this year, a senior officials workshop for all hazards preparedness that the council will be participating in on February 7th. So we will need to revise that council meeting date. Did everybody get that email? Is everybody familiar? Would you like Justin to provide any detail on that particular item?
Well, as I understand it, we only have one option. They can't move their meeting. We must move ours, right?
I believe that's correct.
Right. That's your, yeah. So that week, we need to move it to Monday or Wednesday, I guess, right? So you want to take Shelley to send around an email and take a poll, which is preferred, or you don't know?
Monday the 6th is the commissioners court meeting at 9. I attend the
Oh, yeah.
I'd rather not. So we could do
Okay.
later.
What about Wednesday the 8th? Is that an option? Same time, 9 o'clock. Does that work for everybody? Then I think we've taken care of that. Boy, that's February 5th. We'll be done with this task force.
Where's your meeting?
It'll be at the South Park Station.
Oh, it's here. Okay. So you'll be back in town.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're in city council today.
So the early, the first meeting of February will be Wednesday, February 8th, due to that conflict schedule. And that meeting was set before we moved our meeting times to Tuesday.
And Clinton, are we taking a break on town halls because of the weather and light hours?
That's correct. And I just mentioned to Lee Boye when I walked in this morning that I'd like to get the next one scheduled for the 4th Thursday of this month. So again, Tuesdays I'm sorry, just Thursdays, the 2nd and 4th Thursday of each month. So we'll get that out, see who can attend. We're still looking for hosts. It's difficult this time of the year, temperatures, daylight. I'm looking for indoor locations and so forth. But we want to get the momentum going on those again. We do have a couple of options for the next several months until it starts warming up, get a little bit later in the evening.
One point about future that we were going to meet with the county, and I know it's only Daniel's second day in office, but I would think that we want to schedule a joint meeting. Hopefully, if we're
At least, yeah.
Right. And I've had these discussions with Daniel going back, you know, to the May timeframe, and that's exactly what we'd like to do is get something scheduled fairly early on, let him get his feet on the ground for maybe a month or so. We do have a couple of items that we would like to sit down and discuss with the county, and I think more than anything now too, we'll have the opportunity to have just an open discussion of the issues that we're dealing with and the real issues that they're dealing with. I know that they've made a few gains on the subdivision regulation side of things. We've helped them a lot in that effort. So I think there's going to be a lot more, a lot more working together moving forward. We had even talked about, the mayor and I even talked about a quarterly meeting with the county.
I would agree.
Right. So again, everything we deal with is something they're dealing with, or vice versa. There's a lot of overlap there. This is a huge opportunity for us to really make that relationship more significant.
Emily, you're our representative to the county government. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
Quarterly. Be good.
Be great.
All right. Anything else, Clinton?
I did attend the swearing in of the county judge, so he did show up. He's official now.
He didn't back out.
It was a really good swearing in. There were 15 different officials sworn in that day, so it's really good to see.
Great. All right. Anything else? Is that it for you, Mr. Bailey?
That is it for me. Unless you have any questions.
I think we're at the final.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank